Raheem, can you take us through bringing in Eric Weddle? He said that you guys had talked back and forth a little bit. At first, conversation seemed like it was, playful, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Nah, man, we're serious. We want to bring
No,
him in."
it's always like that. It was the process early in the week, after losing Fuller and knowing there was going to be a significant amount of time, the process of replacing them and getting some other people in here. You talk about the things. We actually had a chance to bring in Blake Countess, some guy that has some experience around here and does some things with E. And they also signed a guy that I was familiar with, Sherrod Niesman. And you're just talking about those veteran type presence that you're able to add at this time of year. Eric Weddle had come up, and he had come up a couple of weeks ago when we had our COVID outbreak, and nobody knew what was going to happen. And we talked about it, but did not call him as of yet. And then I was able to get permission from Sean to actually give him a call and just test some interest. And you know me, I just did it in the playful way, asked him, was he fat? And he said, I'll never be fat. I know he consistently works out, keeps himself in good shape. His brain is like no other, is like a coach. And being fortunate enough to coach this guy in, I think 2007 in our Senior Bowl, when I was there as a secondary coach, young secondary coach, and my assistant, Jimmy Lake at the time, and I was able to be around him and Josh Wilson and Tenard Jackson, a guy that I drafted, and people that we played with in our unit and our crew, and the bond that we formed from that point. It was an easy call, easy transition. Keeping in touch with him and watching him throughout his potentially Hall of Fame career had been a lot of fun. And getting a chance to coach him, he went to check with his family. He did. He got back to us, and obviously the wife runs the show, and he said, man, now we finally get a chance to get coached by you, full time. And he was excited to come in and do that.
And then as you guys are continuing to navigate through some losses and then maybe someone coming back in Taylor, we don't know his status yet. How do you navigate that? And then in terms of your signal caller, you lost two really great candidates for that this year.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Fuller going down with the mic. Obviously, Jalen took it over to finish off that game, which he's capable of doing. But he is the corner, and you don't want to necessarily give it to him at all times. Particularly in those moments, you can have it as an emergency. He's always a valuable guy to be able to have it. But, Troy Reader is one of the guys that will be able to run one of those things for us and run our mic. And we got some really good candidates. The guys, as you guys know, we've been able to test throughout the offseason, be able to work through the season and to get some of those people going on. So it's nice to have Troy having it. Another cerebral, smart, sharp young man that can get through the process and do everything we need to do as far as communication. And I can't wait to get out there and play with these guys.
Thanks, Raheem.
No problem, Joe.
Stu.
Hey, Raheem. What makes a veteran or even just Eric Weddle the best option at this point in the year when you're trying to address that depth at safety? And obviously, you've got a big game coming up in a short amount of time to again address that and get prepared.
Stu is really more about like Fuller, what you're losing with Fuller. You're losing your leader, you're losing a guy that communicates really well, a guy that does all those things great. And that's how his name kind of got brought up. And you talk about Eric Weddle, you think about communication, you think about instincts, you think about ball awareness, you think about all the things that we have been talking about all year, and the ability to add a guy like that on short notice. Who better to come in as a backup quarterback than Eric Weddle when you're talking about defense? When you're talking about television, you talk about getting these guys off of it, man, you think about those people all the time. Every time a quarterback goes down, Dan Orlovsky's brought up to be able to come in and be the backup. And every time a person goes down, you're talking about these guys that are cerebral thinkers that can come in and play the game and do it on short notice without many reps. Are the guys you think about, and Eric Weddle definitely fit that mold for us. So having the ability to get him with our constant communication with Sean, the familiarity of the system and how it was played, the familiarity with the coaches and how they coach and how they talk, being able to speak a lot of the same language, the movement skills, all the things that we value, I think are some of the things and the reasons that you bring in a guy like Eric Weddle.
And then when Ramsey takes over the green dot, obviously he doesn't line up in just one spot. What challenges does that present? Not only with that, but then also just in general when you're shifting from basically the top level of the defense and those calls coming in from there to now that being communicated from the middle of the defense.
It just makes Ramsey have to take his little time when he has to do it. Right now you have Troy doing it, so you're still in the middle of the defense. But when Ramsey does it, he has to probably lock in a little bit more, and he's less effective on his trash talk than normal. He has to get the defense to the guys and then get out to his position wherever it is in that particular snap, whether it be corner, whether it be the inside of the star position or some of the other various positions that he plays for us. It presents a little bit more of a challenge for him just moving around, but it's probably more of an issue for him than it is for anybody else because he's able to do those things to get there.
Kevin.
Hi, Raheem. The placed 3 players on the AP All-Pro team, Cup, Donald, Ramsey. You've been around teams that have handled having a lot of stars, and obviously the Rams have many stars beyond those 3. What kinds of techniques or approaches in coaching and management are needed to bring out the best in stars and to avoid whatever pitfalls there might be in having a mix of stars and effective supporting cast?
You know, it's funny. We were talking about this summer, you know, on Sean, when he turns into one of you guys and becomes a media guy in the summertime, and he does a deal with Schrager, and we're on that, I forget what it's called right now, but we're on this little radio show of how you want to look at it. And it was Mike Tomlin and myself, and we talked about A players playing A-like football. And as a coach, that's what you pride yourself in knowing. You know, you want those A players to be able to play A football. No matter how many people try to double team Aaron Donald or whatever they try to do to get hands on him, you find ways to either coach it or he finds ways to just dominate the game no matter what. And the same thing with a guy like Ramsey and so on and so on with Cooper Kupp. But, you know, those guys know they're going to command double teams. Those guys know they're going to command the hardest cover. They're going to command the hardest amount of issues because people are going to play them because they game records. So to see those guys play that well under those type of circumstances, that lets you know that you are a AP All-Pro football player in this National Football League. And being around those guys is special because of how they prepare. They look at it like a coach. They dive deeper than people are willing to go. And I think that's the thing that makes those guys great.
Mm-hmm. Well, is that notion that there could be pitfalls to having a team of stars? Is that imaginary, or, you know, I mean, it's harder to drive a Formula One car than to drive my car.
You know, it probably is for people who kind of think that way. You know, I don't think anybody in these positions think that way. And I don't think you can think that way as a coach. You know, when you have great players, I don't think you can think about, you know, what if we fail? You know, I don't think that's the first thing I think about during the week. I think about the succession plan. I think about what's the best formula to make us be the very best that we can be and win as many football games that we can, and be in these type of moments when you are going into the playoffs, going to play a significant game versus a very good opponent. Happens to be in your division, and it's those the moments you think about. I don't think you think about the failure part of it. I think the failure part comes when you evaluate it.
I guess I was also just sort of checking with somebody like you who knows about the notion of sort of managing star personalities.
Oh yeah, you know, the management of those guys are I wouldn't say easy. I'd say they're challenging, you know, because the management of those guys just go to a whole different level, and you got to take it as far as they're willing to take it. So for me, I enjoy that a lot, particularly when you're talking about a guy like Jalen Ramsey. Those are like the best moments of my coaching career, being able to handle Jalen Ramsey, the Keep Talibs, and the guys that are so great that they just take it to a whole new level of that ability. And then you got the Aaron Donalds, where we used to joke all the time. We talked about Derek Brooks, and Mike Tomlin used to call Joe Barry the luckiest coach in the National Football League because he had the greatest player and the greatest human in the world running his room. And all those type of things are great. I love managing the players. I love being able to manage those personalities. And it just happens to be great when they're great players, as these guys are.
Thanks, Raheem.
No problem.
All right, Kurt.
Kurt didn't hear you. I think you got permission to speak, Kurt.
There you go. Sorry about that. The block move there, Coach.
Same way, you got no chance. We're not talking to you today. Go ahead, Kurt.
Hey, when you're scheming against a team for the third time, what are the challenges there? What's the biggest challenge, especially with a dynamic running quarterback?
You know, Kurt, for me, I think the thing is to look internally first. You know, look at yourself, look what you've done, look what you've been able to accomplish, look what you failed at, look at what didn't go as well as planned, and then be able to correct those things first and foremost. You know, it's always an inside out approach. You know, look at yourself first and then go into those guys. kind of dive back into their formula, what remains the same, what is consistent, what have they changed, what are the things that they've gotten better at, what are the things that you can see the vast improvement on based on their coaching. And then you try to go into it with a whole new game plan and a whole new week and a whole new perspective. And that helps you go through your week and your processing and everything else. And it helps you make everything fresh. I don't think you look at it as playing them 3 times. I think you look at them every time as an individual game, and you gotta go through the whole process every single time. If you trust your process, I think that's the way to go about your business.
Just a quick follow-up that when you said and then you, after looking inside out, you said then it's new. How much is it like a chess match in terms of tendencies? So they know you, you know them, and
Oh, yeah.
catch yourself second guessing at
It's
all?
it's almost scary. You know, you go to those guys and you lose. And then I remember the first game we played them, we lost, and I went to those guys and I said, hey man, great game plan. That was awesome. And then I remember the second time we beat those guys, and the head coach came to me and said, man, it was a great plan, Ra. And those are the scariest moments, because he's just trying to lull you to sleep in that chess match, right? So let me go back to the drawing board, you know, not try to act like you can recycle old information, and you've got to go through the whole process over and over again and make sure you do it right. And I think that's what the best thing about the chess game is that you're talking about. You know, it's like, you know, what do you want to change? What is changing too much? And what do you want to repeat to try to see if you can get the same results?
Appreciate it, Raheem. Good luck Monday.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I still see a lot of hands. Let's try to be efficient with these questions. Claudia.
Hey, Raheem, talking about Eric Weddle again, how much energy does he bring to this team, and how important is that kind of energy, especially right now?
Claudia, that's funny you mentioned energy. You must have been here when he came into the building the other day as he drove in his big truck, and he just screamed at me throughout his window as we're walking into the offices. He's probably one of the first players in the building. This guy is a pro. I mean, he's the pro's pro. I mean, he's the guy that loves being around football. He's a guy that loves watching football. Right now, he's catching up, and he's catching up fast, and he's watching tape, and he's doing all the things that you want to do. He's one of those guys that commands respect right away. He's one of those guys that can absolutely pick on Jalen and get on him about some things and make him show up to different things and talk about different things and walk through and make him interested. So that kind of energy alone, you know, just screams the things that you love about him. And you couldn't have said it better with the word energy, because it's exactly what he is, Claudia.
And the last question for me, last time you guys played the Cardinals, Kyler Murray was their leader rusher and passed for 383 yards. How much better do you expect him to be this coming game? You know,
Kyler's a phenomenal player. And when you talk about going out there, you talk about stopping the run game. You know, normally you talk about stopping these running backs and these dynamic guys that got back there. But, you know, Kyler can spit off a run, and he rushed for about 60 yards last time, and he was in a comeback mode. He's able to throw the ball around a yard and make some really dynamic plays on I think it was a Monday night as well. But, you know, those kind of guys, you got to find a way to win the game. You got to find a way to stop him, and I expect him to be at his very best.
Thank you, Raheem. Good luck.
Nick.
Hey, Coach, you talked about just Jordan Fuller, but what have you seen him do over the course of time that you've been able to coach him? Not just what we've seen on the field, but in the practices and the film sessions. What have you seen him mature over the course of time, as far as just mentally and physically as well?
You know, Nick, it's been more about the meeting presence that he has. You know, his ability to go in there. He's the one that asks the questions for the group. You could tell he's always the one to stop a meeting and talk about how we want to present it and how he wants to say it on the field. It's been more of those things as opposed to the things naturally on the field. I think the things on the field kind of started for him last year, but now he wants the answers that the people are scared probably or don't really want to ask in the meeting room. And he is the guy that has been the presence as far as asking the questions, getting the answers, getting the appropriate things that he has to do so he can go out and get people lined up that way and to be able to talk in the same language as you're thinking. So I think that's his biggest growth and maturity. That's probably the thing you'll miss the most. And that's why you bring in a guy like a Weddle to try to replace some of that feedback, even though he won't be out there nearly as much as a Fuller would have been.
And also, too, you've been a head coach. You've also been currently being a coordinator. And with the lack of Black coaches having opportunities in the National Football League, currently we sit at just one Black head coach. What are some of the things you feel like are necessary or need to be installed as far as having more opportunities for Black coaches and Black coordinators to have the opportunity to be head coaches and to be more coordinators in the NFL?
You know, I think the process has started I think the process of getting people in front of owners, the process of getting people in front of GMs, the process of the cross mesh that we're trying to already start, the process that Troy Vincent and the National Football League has already got us into, all the things that you can do, all the things of getting people in front of people to talk. I think the process of just having this information right here with us talking about media things, and everything you do is an interview. And I think as coaches, you got to be where your feet are. And right now, our jobs are to be the best that we can be at our position until asked to give our opportunity and our opinions on what we need to get done in order to run our own programs one day. And when those things happen, you just got to be ready. And I think a lot of people are ready. And I think a lot of people will get more opportunities based on the awareness of it all and how we talk about it every single day. And I think those things are happening. I was fortunate enough at the young age of 32 to take over an organization, to be able to run it and have some success. Not enough, obviously, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, but when you get into those positions and you get into those spots, you just got to take advantage of them.
Thanks, Coach.
No problem.
Gary.
Hey, Raheem. In the name of efficiency, I'll go with two questions because
it's not your fault. The efficiency thing. My answers are way too long, Gary. And these
no. Believe me, we all welcome them. So my first question, part of it would be, what has Von Miller brought to the defense, especially as you guys get ready to make a playoff run? And secondly, have you, with the 8 openings in the NFL, have you been contacted by any teams yet? And are you optimistic about more Black coaches getting opportunities?
Okay, Von Miller, was kind of great. He started off a little bit slow when he got here. He showed us some dynamic rush. And I talked to you guys, I think, earlier about how the guy has not really lost a one-on-one, and he just hadn't got there yet. Now it's starting to come to fruition. The last couple of weeks, we're talking about a guy winning these one-on-ones and getting to the quarterback. I think he has about 4 or 5 sacks within the last couple of games. And he's really becoming a factor, and he's really starting to find his way, and he's really starting to find his way around Aaron Donald and how to play with him as well, because that's a part of it as well. Him and Flo, which side, who's going to what side on each play. So I think all those things over the last course of the season in the second half of the season has been really good for us. So I'm really fired up to see that and how that's going to transpire throughout the playoffs. The second part of your question was me being contacted. That's why I have an agent. I'll leave that up to you guys. You, Weish, Jordan, you guys are my agent. You guys figure that out, and who wants to talk to me and who wants to talk about being a head coach and running their program. But for me, myself, I'm concentrating on Arizona Cardinals moving forward, trying to get a win for the Sean McVay coach football team. That he is a definitely we, not me mentality. So that'd be a completely selfish idea of me to think about not putting off my full effort towards that. Do I think Black coaches are going to get the opportunities? Yes, I do. I really honestly believe that. And I think when you stop believing it, I think that's when it won't happen. I think when you give up in hope, I think that'll be the issue. And I will never give up on the hope part of it, because I believe there are great people out there. There are people that are going to do the right things, and there are going to be people that want you, not for the color of your skin, but for the nature of the beast that you are at the job you do.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We'll wrap up with Steve and Maria.
Hey, Rod, not expecting the answer on the first one, but why is it Black coaches always have to answer questions about diversity? But I just said that to get that off my mind. Let's get to the game. The Cardinals, Christian Kirk came out and said, without D-Hop, teams are defending them differently, especially on the back end. And watching the tape, see how teams are kind of slowing down their offense, or are defending their offense, I should say. What have you seen in that regard?
You do look at how other people defend it, but I think it's more based on your strengths and the things that you have. For D-Hop, you're missing an all-pro. You're missing one of the better receivers in the National Football League, and that's shifted some attention to more A.J. Green. That shifted more attention to Christian Kirk. And those guys have become more productive. So now those guys are getting more production and more attention, so to speak, than they probably had in the past. So now you're starting to see those things. Now, A.J. Green obviously is accustomed to that because of his time in Cincinnati, but Kirk is getting a little bit more attention, and all those guys. They've had some injuries, definitely. They had their running backs out. They had their dynamic joker, so to speak. He's been out of the game, and they're getting those guys back. So I look forward to those guys being able to come in here with their best self, and hopefully we can be our best self and get the win.
All right, appreciate you, Rod.
No problem. And Black coaches always got to answer those questions.
Always.
And we're supposed to. It's good.
And Maria.
Hey, Raheem, we always talk about how important it is to get off to a fast start for the offense. How important is that for the defense as well?
I think people that say fast start is pretty true. When you're an offense, you do want to do those things because you want to stay ahead of the change, you want to stay ahead of the curve. For defense, I think it's about finish. We got off to a pretty fast start last week. We didn't finish the right way. We got to finish the right way. We got to finish the games. We got to finish those third downs. We got to finish, and it becomes the tackling. In defense, I think the finish word becomes a little bit more important when you're talking about those things, because everything that we do is kind of, around finishing, tackling, third downs, get offs, turnovers, all those things are finishing moments. And let's go finish this game and find a way to get the Rams a win.
Has that been the focus this week, is finishing?
I think it's been the focus all year, is finishing. I don't worry about stats. Part of my stats are for losers comment. You can't get to 12 wins without having a bunch of good finishing opportunities. And hopefully we can get to our 13th win by having some really good finishing moments. If that
Thanks,
makes
Raheem.
sense.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.